logistic companies that will assist us in doing everything in the oil and gas industry on the right way. Third one, last one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Rudolph. Testing. Hearing me? Okay, everybody, good afternoon. On behalf of ASCO, very happy to be here. And what we would like to do is zone in on the offshore oil and gas infrastructure. And what we do at ASCO is we keep energy moving. Oil and gas is important to all economies, to the Trinidad economy, to the Guyana economy, and to the Suriname economy. And what we do is ensure that we deliver in an optimized, efficient, and cost-effective manner what the oil and gas companies need in order to deliver on the oil and gas product for countries like Suriname. What we have done internationally is establish global supply bases. So as Merval and Guido would have said before, we would come in and advise on what the shore base requires for each oil and gas operator. There are some basics, there are some foundations, but each client is individual and unique in their own different way. We have done many of these shore bases around the world, Norway, Senegal, many in different parts of the world, Australia, and so forth. Our region has been very fortunate. In Trinidad, we have operated in excess of 6 shore bases there, our own, as well as those belonging to other facility operators, and we operate them on behalf of our clients. Merval mentioned that we had about 11 in Trinidad, but there's a reason for that. Unlike Suriname and Guyana, we are not landlocked. We're an island, so there's ability for vessels to go all the way around. And largely, the development of shore bases in Trinidad has been driven by the clients, by Shell, by BP, by BHP, by Woodside, by Repsol, by Apache, by Total Energies, and all the other international oil companies that have come through Trinidad that we have serviced as well. And we operate out of each one and develop each one that the client has requested. It's largely client-driven, based on what their intentions are, based on where they're drilling, because we have bases in the Northeast, we have bases in the Southeast, we have bases in the Southwest. It all depends on where they are drilling. And because the flexibility to go around the island is there, that has been what has spurred the development on. The key aspect of our work is coming into facilities, and Suriname is developing many of these facilities. Merval named a lot of them. Guido showed one of the new ones that are coming up as well. And facility operators and owners put a lot of money in developing their shore bases, their ports, and so on. Where we come in is to make sure we operationalize it effectively on behalf of the clients. Because you can spend a lot of money building something and then it doesn't suit the clients. It doesn't have the things that they want. They want something specific. Their service companies want something different. You can spend money building a lot of infrastructure and then they come and they say, oh, we don't want to use that. It's not suitable to us. It's not suitable to the technology that our service companies are going to use. It's not suitable for the equipment that we want to put on the site. So this is where involving the stakeholders, like the logistics companies, come in. And when we operationalize the facility now, it allows the oil and gas companies to operate from the facility in a very optimized manner. We ensure that they get their supply vessels in and out very quickly. These are not vessels that are designed to be tied up to a quayside for any length of time. They want to get in, get their stuff off, get their stuff on, get refuel, get back out to the rigs or the platforms. These are in excess of $50,000 US per day it costs to run one of these vessels. So making sure that they're not stuck at a quayside or stuck waiting to come into a quayside is extremely important. And this is where the logistics come in. Lots of things happen when you're out drilling. The pipe gets stuck, a tool gets lodged in the pipe somewhere. They have to send back the vessel out of cycle. We need to make sure that that vessel can come in and get back out when there are disruptions in the normal cycle. What happens as a result of that is that the client tends to drive the fact that they want 100% dedicated availability. I want somewhere that my vessel can come in and out when I want it to come in and out. I'm not going to sit waiting. I don't want to share, because if I share, it means I have to sit and wait on somebody else. That's not what I'm spending my money for, right? So those things are what we come in to do, to make it efficient, optimize, massage the process, have the bird's eye view, and be able to advise on the operations in the real-time moments. Because in the active operations, you can make a decision this morning, and then by lunchtime, the drilling manager or the rig manager, something goes wrong, they make a different plan, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the plan changes for tomorrow. And then we have to make sure that our teams are flexible enough and optimized enough to be able to respond to those rapid changes. Right? We will have a team available today, something happens, they send a vessel midnight. We have to work that at midnight. So those are the ways that we ensure that we respond to our clients' needs. And when we work with a facility partner, we need to ensure that the facility is able to be flexible enough with us to respond to the client's needs. Because that is the way you get your ROI back on the amount of money that you've put into developing your facility. By making sure that your clients are happy, by making sure they can do what they want to do in a cost-effective and optimized manner. Because you want your ROI on the facility. And we've done it in Trinidad at several facilities. We've done it in Suriname. We are happy to say, we brought Total Energies from the Chagaramas base where they operated. They first started drilling Block 58 from the Chagaramas base, and we transferred them to the Kudipsing port here in Suriname, right? And, we're happy to have the FID announced, and we look forward to the others coming from Petronas and all the other operators that are, getting into the exploration now. In addition to that, one of the other things that we also liaise with and advise on with our facility operators is the other aspects of the logistics planning. So we spoke about transport this morning, we spoke about equipment, but it's not just putting down a crane and a truck. What kind of crane, what kind of truck equipment? In Suriname, you will see the trucks on the road get longer and longer and longer and heavier. 50-foot, 60-foot, 70-foot extendable trailers are going to be on your roads. Are the roads capable of taking that? Are they able to turn to get into the base? Are they able to turn to get into the facility provider? To get into the vendor? Are they able to turn, make the turning radius, come back out safely? Those are the things that we talk about, we advise on. The kind of equipment that's coming. There are lots of cranes and trucks and forklifts that operate on sustainable fuel, alternative fuels. In the UK currently, 100% of our fleet runs on hydrotreated vegetable oil, making us, that a very sustainable part of our operation. Can that be done here? No, we don't have that fuel here. Is there any biofuel or sustainable type of fuel available for somebody that may want to bring down trucks that run only on, carbon-free fuel, sustainable fuel, to give that and contribute that 100% carbon-free footprint? So those are things when you're planning, you have to plan on the operational side as well, because you want to be able to include those things into the operationalization of the client's project. And then it's not just the quayside. Everybody talks about 5 berths and 600-meter berths and 700-meter berths, but you also have an integrated facility in terms of the warehousing for materials management, the expediting portions of the warehouse, the pipe yards. Do you have lay-down area big enough at a LBC that can take the weight of the pipe that is coming in to do the projects, right? And then one of the other things that we also look at in the future, and this, you'll see a lot of this coming in as the development starts. This is our project in Senegal, our shore base in Senegal. A lot of the subsea equipment is bigger and heavier equipment than you would see normally in a normal drilling campaign. So are the ports prepared to accept the weight of these items, the size of these items, the length of these items? The particular oil company will have a particular technology that they will use for some of their subsea structures. Not every oil company uses the same type of Christmas trees, the same type of subsea structures. So you have to kind of know what is the history where the technology is going with each individual oil company, because they're not all the same, and kind of stay ahead of the game to be able to understand what you need to provide for that particular company and respond to their needs. And lastly, we were speaking about, sorry Neil, I've gone into yours. We're speaking about going beyond, and as Mervell said, you want to make sure that you position your shore base, your port for the future. One of the things that we've been doing in the UK, it hasn't come down to the Caribbean region yet, but it will feature. But in the UK, the shore bases have now been pivoted to support the offshore wind industry and to support the carbon storage, the underground carbon storage, the CCU storage. It's the same facility, the same type of lifting and shifting that is required to support those industries. So these are things that we want to think about for the future as well, because after the drilling goes away, after the developments, you know, have their peak and come down to decommissioning stage, because we've seen it in Trinidad. We've gone from exploration and drilling, and we have decommissioning of assets now that have lived and given their useful life. What do you do with these infrastructure? So you repurpose them. And like Guyana, I believe Suriname is also going to look to develop the alternative energy simultaneously with the oil and gas. And that's why it's always good to plan to also be able to support the offshore wind industry as well, because it gives you dual purpose rather than just only the oil and gas. And thinking about that while you are developing your infrastructure is also equally important, because you want to serve as many purposes as possible. Why? Because you want your ROI on your facility. So things like that are what we get involved in and so forth and advise on. And that's all I have to say today. So I'm open to any questions. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. The question that I have, when I think about the logistic companies, I ask myself, so if you talk about local content, and you talk about what will you leave behind in Suriname if you come and go for, let's say, Bogota is asking you for the
Local content plan.
exploration phase, but for the development phase only. What is that the Surinamese companies that are there, and I still are, what is it that you will be able to leave behind for that assessment?
So what we do when we go into new markets is we implement the international standards. So somebody spoke today about the IOGP. Those are international standards that all the oil companies utilize to have a standard for everything from transport to safety and so on. There are other standards in terms of the technical lifting, which we are specialists in as well. When we train local Surinamese staff, they're trained in these certifications. These are global certifications. So for the human capital, our ASCO employees can go to any international shore base, any other country, and operate under those standards. So we've opened the Senegal base in Africa with Trinidadians, because the skills are transferable. Those Senegalese in time will go to other ASCO bases and help open and operate in those areas. They can transfer to other companies as well, because those other companies, even our competitors, utilize the same global standards. We also, in terms of suppliers, raise the standards in terms of packaging, materials handling, how you deliver to an oil and gas company. So you don't just put your stuff on a truck and show up to the base to put it on the vessel. That's a no-no, because the rig and ultimately the production platform is a very small footprint. They don't have time to be taking and checking and having mistakes with cargo when it gets out there. It needs to be perfect, it needs to be exactly what they want, and it needs to be the way they want it. So part of our assurance is doing those supplier checks when it comes to the base. Is the cargo what it's supposed to be? Is it packaged properly in a safe manner so that the guys on the rig and the platform don't have to fight up with it and put themselves in a position where there's a safety issue, right? So those are the ways that we liaise with suppliers and so on to give those competencies and those standards.
But if there will be a company in Suriname. Let's say that says, I also want to be a logistic company 5 years from now. And they will come to us, we will train them to be more or less a competitor. I mean, like, I know that in Trinidad, for example, you have Rams, who is really a Trinidadian company. Is that a spin-off of one of your companies that train them people, or how does that work? Because I would love to have, if I come 10 years or 20 years from now, I would love to have also Surinamese logistic company.
So lots of people see what we do and think they can replicate and do it. It's not a trademarked science by any means, but I do think it's important to be embedded in the operation, to be part of ASCO, to learn and do. We have many persons from ASCO that have gone on to open their own companies, that have gone on to form their own businesses, that have gone on to different companies, different international oil companies. So when we have our human capital, we invest in them, and then they go on and transfer those knowledge and skill, whether internally back to us or on the outside as suppliers, as vendors, as employees in the same oil companies that we support. We've taken Surinamese staff and brought them to Trinidad to train, and we trained because there was no drilling going on here. So for them to get the practical knowledge to then come back and operate on Kuldipsing base, we took them to where the activity was happening to get the practical training, which is important from a safety perspective and from a transference of competencies perspective. So it's very important to us to ensure the transfer of skills and competencies happen in the Surinamese environment and in any other market that we operate in. And those are things that we also commit to the international oil companies for, because as a service provider, we also have to show them that we are equally committed to the local content.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Is there a question in the room for Deborah? No? Okay. Then I can just remark to you. Next. Logistical company.
Got to go.
To go so.